Whether you're dreaming of a retirement with sand between your toes and a cold one in your hand, hitting the road to chase the winds of adventure, or spending time with your grandchildren, this show is intended to help you get there. Welcome to Coasting in Retirement with your host, Josh Knoll. You've worked too hard throughout your career to spend your retirement worrying. So sit back and kick up your feet because we've got lots of financial tips and tricks to share to help you get exactly where you want to be. Here's Josh.
Hello, Lower Alabama. Hello, Gulf Coast. Welcome in. Welcome to Coasting in Retirement. That's right. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to have you. Josh Knoll here. Regular co-host Michelle is off this week. Joining me once again is our regular fill-in, Jay Stubbs with Providence Partners. Jay, how you doing, buddy?
Josh, I'm doing good. It's good to be with you, and excited to get another show in the book so that our listeners can learn a little bit.
That's right. Well, we're recording this episode remotely in your office, actually, here in Mobile, and the sound's a little different. Throw us off a little bit.
I hope nobody can tell, but it's a nice office. We just don't have the padding that the normal studio has.
Yeah, we got it's a little louder for us, but we're going to do our best job of putting together another great show for those of you tuning in. Listeners, Jay and I are here today to discuss financial topics relevant to those of you in or near retirement, living your best life along our part of the Gulf Coast. Here's what we got in store for you. First segment, deep dive on our topic of the day. Second segment, about 25 minutes past the hour. That'll be news headlines of the week. And then roughly 45 minutes past the hour, stick around for our third segment. We call it Josh's Crystal Ball and Big Mouth. We're going to see what Jay's Crystal Ball has to say about some recent news. So buckle up. We got a lot to get to. Quick background on those of you new to the show. Again, my name is Josh Knoll. I'm a fee-based financial advisor. I hold my FINRA Series 65 securities license, and I'm the owner of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. That's an independent investment management and financial planning firm. We have offices in Fairhope, Orange Beach, and Mobile. You can find more information on me and the team at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors by visiting our website, gulfcoastfa.com, or feel free to give us a call anytime, 251-327-2124. Now, if you just missed that contact info, go grab a pen and pad and get ready because we will repeat it several times throughout the show. All right, so Jay, let's take a little trip down memory lane, shall we?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, so way back in 2019.
Gosh, that was a long time ago.
Feels like you and I started a podcast called Every Dollar Counts with Josh and Jay.
It was a hit.
It was a hit. It was a great experience. Certainly developed a dedicated audience, and I know that I learned a ton from the experience. And now, while we now spend most of our time and energy on Coasting in Retirement, there is no doubt that Every Dollar Counts walked so that this radio show could run. It came to mind, Jay, because I had a client meeting this past week, that brought Every Dollar Counts back into the front of my mind, specifically a series of episodes that we did called the Business Owner Strategies and Solutions Series, which with your big brain, you said, let's name it.
Boss,
B-O-S-S for short.
Isn't that clever?
That was very clever. And it was probably our most productive from a revenue generating standpoint podcast series that we did. It went well.
We helped a lot of business owners.
We did. Can you believe that we recorded the first episode of that series almost 5 years ago to the day today?
Wow, that's amazing.
That is amazing. 2020, how time flies. Anyway, so back to the client meeting that I had this week. So no names given in case they're listening. It was just a father that owns a construction business working on transferring the business to his son, who also works in the business but doesn't have any ownership in the corporation yet, and then easing into retirement or semi-retirement. With our part of the Gulf Coast, especially Baldwin County, I thought that it would be a good spur, the fact that there's, just like this construction business, there's so many family-owned small businesses in our part of the world. Wouldn't you agree, Jay?
Yeah, we're riddled with S-Corps and LLCs and tons of entrepreneurial spirited individuals and families who have decided, you know what, I'm going to run my own company. And I like to say they're owner-operators, meaning they operate each and every day in their business. They love what they do. It doesn't matter what walk of life they're in, whether it's construction or industrial or real estate or investments in insurance or even physicians and sole practitioner, dental and orthodontic professionals. So a lot of people own their own business and they're owner-operators. And then one day they're just owners, right, Josh?
Yep.
You get to a stage in life where you're like, well, I still own the company. I'll have other people operate the day-to-day operations. And then we talk a lot of those business owners about the succession to that next generation or that key employee. So yeah, there's a lot of these types of businesses around Mobile and Baldwin County, especially South Baldwin County.
Yes.
In the market that serves our great white sandy beaches during all of those trips starting in spring break, about to kick up here, I guess, in the next couple of months, all the way through the summer months into Labor Day. A lot of small business operations down there.
Well, so I thought it'd be a great time to revisit our small business owner succession planning. And I think because I think most small business owners would agree that the idea of passing on their business to the next generation or selling it maybe to a trusted partner or just an outright sell can be both exciting and daunting, right?
Absolutely, it can. And there's probably those that are listening who said, you know what, I've thought about setting up my own business at some point in the future. Maybe this is some of the intel that you get that helps you make that decision. So even if you're a W-2 employee and work for someone else, if you've ever had an entrepreneurial bone in your body, start thinking about doing the business your way and being an owner operator, maybe some of this information is going to be pertinent for you.
So Jay, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to lay out some of the most common ways for a business to be passed on to the next generation, and then let's just discuss each one at a time, okay?
Sounds good.
I also want to incorporate some discussion around buy-sell agreements. Now, of course, neither, as we'll say a couple times throughout this episode, neither you or I are attorneys, but we deal a lot with buy-sell agreements and particularly the funding of said agreements. So let's start with the first way to transfer a business and exactly what I am currently helping this previously mentioned father and son navigate a family business transfer. So let's start with that family transfer. This is small business owner succession planning. A family transfer involves passing the business directly to a family member, often a child or a sibling. Now, this method can be structured as a gift or a sale, depending on the financial and tax ramifications of that. So let's talk about that, Jay. In my particular thing, this situation actually is fairly clean. I've got a single member LLC. Father owns 100%. There are 3 children. He has 3 children, but just one son works in the business. So it's going to be fairly clean transfer to the one son. Now, of course, I asked many questions about the other 2 kids, as you can imagine. But let's talk about the most common, or at least what I think would be the most common of a small business transfer. One that I hopefully do someday would be from not necessarily father to son, but from parent to child. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's often what does happen, especially if you've got a son or a daughter who's been involved, or maybe the existing owner, in fact, inherited it from his mother or father in the family business succession train. Usually, if you talk with anybody in the Mobile Baldwin County marketplace, these folks have been in business for decades upon decades, and there usually is a strong family background there. But simple family transfer, you can work that out through gifting of shares of the company. You can work it out through actual, just hey, take these items over and become a member of the LLC. It's a very simple transaction that you can make on the Alabama Secretary of State website. You just update the information on who's the members and who's in a controlling situation. So it's a real easy way for folks to maintain some what I like to say is care, custody, and control. So if I'm a business owner with a young man or a young lady coming in that might be my relative or even grandson or granddaughter, I want to maintain some care, custody, and control to make sure that the business that they are jumping into, that younger person, is actually going to enjoy it, number one, and be successful and have a good situation come from their new business relationship. So maintaining that care, custody, and control allows for them to really not have to worry too much if the son or the daughter or the grandson or the granddaughter doesn't like it anymore.
Right. All right. So let's pivot, Dave, to number 2. Let's say that there isn't a child or a kid working in the business, or maybe there is and they're not quite ready yet, which we've seen, right?
Absolutely.
But the business owner has a vested interest in that business continuing to succeed, and not just from a pride standpoint of look at what I created and it continued on beyond me, but a lot of times with these types of buyouts, you will see some type of payment plan as the year goes on. So number 2 would be an employee buyout, which typically we're looking at either a key employee type of buyout, like a key personnel, 1 or 2 top managers, if you will, or we can look at selling the business to a group of employees through what's commonly done through an employee stock ownership plan, an ESOP plan. What's been your experience with that?
Well, ESOPs are can be complicated, but there are a lot of companies that have made it really easy to transact ESOPs. What you have to understand there is you've got to have a significant amount of revenue to come into play. So if I'm a business owner listening and I want to sell my business interest to the next generation that's not my relatives, so not son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, what have you. And these are just 2, 3, 5, maybe even 10 employees that are really, really engaged and interested in taking this business to the next level. But as an individual or just a couple of individuals, maybe they can't afford the transfer price of what I'm expecting as the business owner who's looking to retire. So, if we have a $5 million business, that usually is the minimum for ESOPs, is $5 million in revenue and above. And then obviously some structureship and some ownership. And there's going to be some tax consequences there for that business owner that's going to transfer. And that's a good tax consequence. There's some things there. So you want to get all parties involved as an ESOP is on your radar, and you can let Josh or I know if an ESOP is something that you're considering. Just remember, you need to have at least $5 million in revenue each and every year. And then I also like to bring up the point employee buyout. Might be that group of employees that say, yeah, we're going to take this run with it. We're going to do what the business owner asks us to do, but he or she is going to kind of step back slowly.
Right.
And hopefully they go do their own thing. Maybe they retire or what have you. But that business owner needs to have some risk protections in place. So a lot of structured employee buyouts come with maybe 3 or 5 year payment plans. And that employee or 2 or 3 just pays their cost of that business, what they're buying it for, their purchase price over that time frame. Well, if one of those key people passes or becomes disabled, then the business owner who sold it to those key people is going to maybe having a risk situation come up. So it's always important to maybe look at 1 year annual renewable term for some value, maybe even 10-year term for some value and some protections there, so that if one of those key people that you sold it to ends up having a sickness or passing, then you are made whole from what their obligations were. So just some things there. Employee buyout, a great way. Just you need to have the conversation. If you've got really nice people, great people that have been there for years and years, just start having the conversation. Would you be interested in taking over this business?
Well, that leads me easily into the next one. The next one is management buyout. So it kind of keys on what you just said with key persons buying the business versus the group buying the business. So with a management buyout, very similar to an employee buyout, the upper level management, whoever you identify, could be 1, 2, could be 5, 10, however the size of your business. Usually that's often financed through a combination of debt and equity, sometimes with a payment plan, like you said. But as opposed to an ESOP where you've got a larger pool of smaller investors, whereas let's say that if one of them decides to leave the business, or like you said, Jay passes, the percentage effect on the total buyout is going to be fairly minimal, as opposed to a managed buyout where you've got identified, especially if you got, say, two vice presidents coming in and now they're going to buy it. What kind of protections can somebody look at versus just a debt and equity? Are there things that the owner can do? Hey, what happens if this key employee that's really been crucial to this, not only the past success of my business, but to the ongoing success of my business? What happens? What do I do if something happens to them? Well,
you can put some golden handcuffs on them to keep them around. A lot of competitive businesses out there, people looking for good employees, good hires. So you want to keep maybe that VP who you've identified as a potential business succession plan for yourself. You want to keep them around. So offering them obviously a nice employee benefit package. We obviously, Josh, that we do that through our benefits side of Providence Partners, but also maybe some executive benefits and then some protections there. Key person coverage that always comes into play. Whatever that individual is worth to the business, usually 10 times what they're bringing in or what their salary is. We can justify that from a financial perspective. So if they're bringing in $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million in sales, we can find some sort of formula that gets us to a key person policy and put that into place. I just put a key person policy in place this week for $1.5 million on a 10-year term. The premium on this individual, he was, born in 1988, so that makes him 37. A $1.5 million 10-year term was around $1,200 annual premium.
Wow,
So we're not
100 a
talking
month.
about a huge expense here to have some protections for key people, especially Josh, if we have identified them as potential successor management type people.
Very good. All right. Now, number 4, Jay, this is something we see a lot in our industry where you bring on a kind of a partnership or, for example, in our industry, usually when a financial advisor is looking to transition out of the business and they don't necessarily have, or maybe they do have a kid that works in the business, but a lot of times they'll bring in a younger advisor that will be their succession plan. And what will generally happen is there'll be a time period where that junior or that younger advisor works with the retiring advisor, kind of meets all their clients, starts doing some transition paperwork, and the original advisor, the retiring advisor, has a really vested interest in the success of the succeeding advisor because a lot of times their payout is based on client retention. So talk just a little bit about the partnership or having a successor learn the ropes while the current owner phases out of their
Josh, we see this often in sole proprietor CPA shops, financial advisor shops, insurance agencies, property and casualty agencies, where you're bringing in somebody and they're going to work for you for an extended period of time and maybe work off or work towards a percentage of ownership. It happens in dentist office very, very often, in the medical practices and dental practice. You see a dentist or an orthodontist who's been in business for 20, 30, 40 years. Now it's time for them to bring somebody on, and they just start doing a joint venture, making sure that younger professional is equipped to handle and take over that business operation. So you do see it a lot in the professional. And again, you do need a buy-sell agreement. And you need a properly funded buy-sell agreement if you're going to do that. So, Josh, hypothetically, if you say, Jay, I want you to come and work for me at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, and you're going to buy this thing from me in 5 years, we need to have an agreement in place. And where am I going to go get the funding to purchase your business from you? Things of that nature. What are going to be the triggering events that cause you to say, hey, I'm going to sell this to Jay? You can throw anything from death and disability to even life events. Maybe you have some sort of onset of a illness, stroke, or cancer, or maybe you just get tired sooner and want to go retire and play more basketball and hang out on the beach. Whatever the case is, make sure your triggering events are put into your buy-sell agreements. And we can talk all day long about buy-sell agreements. It's just part of the business planning that is a huge, huge priority to a lot of business owners in and around the Mobile and Baldwin County market.
Very good. All right. So the 5th one, Jay, is the one that probably comes with the most unknown, if you will. It's got the most upside. Consequently, it's probably got the most downside at times. And that's just an outright sell, a third-party sell.
Go find an agent or somebody that's going to tell everybody about my business and find somebody that I do not know and that I'm going to transact with this business.
Yes, I've had some clients that have joined groups where they match sellers with buyers, and I've seen sometimes it work well, and sometimes, Jay, I've honestly seen a lot of dumb money in some of those groups where they'll have people make unrealistic offers, and then through due diligence they'll realize they'll have such a list of demands on the current business owner that by the time they whittle everything down, it's not worth their time financially.
And we've seen and heard a lot about this type of. You see larger publicly traded companies as well as private equity type of companies
Right.
who will identify great cash flow companies. Down here, we have a lot of collision and car and truck repair. And there's some national brands that will come in there and buy up a block of somebody's repair shops that they own. Same thing goes for the surgical practices and things of that nature, and the labs that are out there in the medical community. You'll see other, maybe even hospitals come in and buy up a group. You'll see different ways to structure out these businesses that have been here for a long time. You go to that third party fella or firm and they say, hey, go find us a buyer. And sometimes it might be, somebody based in Birmingham or Nashville that wants to expand into the Gulf Coast, or it might be a national organization that's going to do that, what you call dumb, stupid money, and throw it at that business owner and say, just take this $1 million and go retire, go sunset, go do something else. But oftentimes, Josh, that will come with a non-compete.
Right.
So that succeeding business owner that's going to that third party, they're going to say, hey, we got to protect ourselves, make sure that you don't go out there and start trying to steal the clients that we just purchased from you, or the whatever the operations are. So just understand that you will oftentimes have a non-compete if you're selling to a third party like that.
Yeah, the folks in our industry that are listening to us right now are saying, yeah, that sounds like an aggregator or a roll-up RIA right there,
That's right.
Yeah, large check, but there's always going to be some stipulations around it. Well, no matter these things that we talked about, whether we're doing a family transfer, we're doing an ESOP, we're bringing on a successor or a partner, we're doing a key person management buyout, or we're just doing an outright sale. Jay, all of them need a written succession plan. Would you agree?
Absolutely. It's one of the protections, number one priorities that I have seen in poll after poll, all the way back to 2010 Harris poll. The number one priority is having business protection and business succession planning as something that the business owner wants to sit down and have done. And they'll oftentimes spend more planning towards vacations when family than they actually will the business protection and succession planning. So just if you're one of those folks listening, driving down or at your home listening to this, or maybe you're even at the office today listening to this, we certainly implore you to sit down and draft out what your goals and aspirations are for the succession of your business. And if you don't have anybody to transfer that thing to, then start looking for friends and others in the community, maybe even competitors. And if you don't have that, then you maybe need to enlist the services of a headhunting firm that's going to go find a group that's going to purchase you out.
Well, two more quick points then. On yours, we always recommend, it's one of those things, especially when you're doing a family type of transfer. A lot of times you think, well, we can just communicate this. We'll make it happen. We don't necessarily need to bring in the expense or take the time to meet with other professionals. But really, no matter the size of the business, we're always going to recommend have an arm's length, disinterested third-party team of professionals and advisors working on this deal with you, especially if you got something of substantial value. And in particular, it may seem a little frivolous to some degree, again, especially when you're dealing with a family transfer, but a buy-sell agreement, just like with your overall written succession plan, a buy-sell agreement is very important to have written out, not only for clarity, Jay, for the people involved in the transaction, but I always tell people when family's involved, even if it's the in-laws, the outlaws, the cousins, anybody that, especially if you're in a family where maybe your business is probably the most successful or one of the more successful businesses of that family, there's going to be a lot of people looking for possibly getting their hand in that pie, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
And let's also bring up the thing that your case example of the father and the son, but there's another couple of kids in the mix, right? If it's a successful business, you need to look at estate equalization planning. Estate equalization planning, if you've identified, yes, I am the owner of the business and it's going to transfer to my son or to my daughter, but you've got other kids that are not going to be involved in that business to any degree, you need to make sure that there's no animosity between those kids 15, 20 years down the road. So you need to have an estate equalization plan. And that's where we will look at some insurance planning, life insurance planning to identify and obviously put those plans into place. So just remember that driving down the road, if you've got other people who have a financial interest in the business, in the family business, but you've only identified one person that's going to be in there and there's two others to think about, don't let there be any animosity down the road between those kids. Make sure you have an estate equalization plan in place.
Right. Yeah, and last key point for those of y'all that are looking at doing some succession planning, the first thing is make sure that your buy-sell is written. Second thing, make sure it's funded, because an unfunded buy-sell agreement is really just a promise.
And I will tell you, Josh, those listening we are the third party folks. If you manage their money, obviously, if they sell a business, you're going to continue to manage more of their assets. Correct.
Correct.
If they need insurance planning, they come to you. They come to me, and they need some to protect their income. We did a couple of cases on disability income protection for some small business owners here in the last several months. They need to protect their income. They need to protect their retirement type planning and with long-term care planning. So all things come into play with us as third party. We may not be drawing up the legal documentation for the business succession. We may not be drawing up the buy-sell agreement or the key person agreement, but we're certainly involved in that process to make sure that your values and your priorities are met, and that the proper funding mechanisms, i.e. insurance, are placed inside of those agreements.
Very good. All right, so for you business owners tuning in, If you'd like to have a free, no obligation conversation about how to pass your business on to the next generation, then give us a call. You can reach us at 251-327-2124 or through my website, Gulf Coast FA is in financialadvisor.com. Now, on our site, you can choose to send us a direct message, or you can click on the blue button in the upper right-hand corner. That'll set up a 15-minute introductory phone call on my calendar. If you do that and you want me to call you, make sure that you put your phone number there. All right, folks, coming up next, there's always a lot going on in the world, particularly the world of finance, investments, and money. Every week, we scour the internet for financial articles related to our topic of the day, especially articles that pertain to those of you in or near retirement. So join us after the break to hear Jay and I discuss this week's relevant headlines in our News Headlines of the Week segment. Stay tuned.
A multidimensional financial services company, Providence Partners serves the needs of independent insurance, financial, and employee benefit professionals. The team at Providence Partners serves other business professionals like property and casualty agencies, registered investment advisors, community banks, and benefit brokers to assist in their clients' risk management planning. Whether an individual or business owner client, this planning includes income replacement protection, planning for extended healthcare costs, family needs, and generational transfers of wealth. At Providence Partners, we give you access to industry specialists. Those specialists focus on business succession, business owner planning, family and household protection, estate planning, planning for that income loss, or planning for long-term care solutions. Providence Partners is an Alabama-based company. We have offices in Birmingham and along the Gulf Coast. Our website is providencepartners.org, and you can reach us any of the working days.
Welcome back to Coasting Retirement. Your host, Josh Knoll here. So as we discussed before the break, every week we scour the internet for financial articles related to our topic of the day, especially articles that pertain to those of you in or near retirement. Our job, or at least we think it is to help you all understand how these headlines impact you, especially when it comes to your money. Now note, if you want to read our referenced articles yourself, we include the links on our show transcript, which you can find on our website, gulfcoastfa.com. Just look under the podcast tab after this show has aired. All right, Jay, let's dive into our first article. It's from J.P. Morgan. It is titled, Introduction to Succession Planning for Business Owners. Now, Jay, I picked this article because I felt like it had easy to understand common sense advice, such as building your professional team, how to value your business. I know something that you're really deeply involved with, and incorporating estate tax planning into your process, or estate tax planning, excuse me. So you and I, we've served on several business transition teams now in our 40 plus years of experience.
That's right.
So let's talk about our respective roles in that process. Plus, I'd like to get your thoughts on business valuations and what role a good estate planning attorney would serve as part of a business owner succession planning team.
Well, Josh, it's one of those things where they come to us because ultimately there's an asset to manage or there's a risk to protect. So business succession planning, there might be some discussion of that business owner of, Josh, I'm about to have a windfall of cash because I'm selling my business to two folks. What do my investments need to look like? Because up until now, the business has been my investment, right? That's been my generation of typical income to support the family. Well, now with the business gone and the revenue from that business being now taken over by the person that you sold it to or the group that you sold it to, you've got to generate an income stream, an income plan for that new now retired exited business owner. So that comes into play, but also some insurance opportunities come into play. Obviously, with the business succession, we need to have a discussion about funding a buy-sell agreement with life insurance, something as simple as a 10-year term. We might need to have some key people protected. Again, something as simple as 10-year term insurance.
Or even disability buyout.
Disability buyout. There are specific companies out there that offer a disability buyout plan that you can make part of a buy-sell agreement.
Well, and Jay, let me jump in. Like, let's say you and I are in a business together. We're 50-50. And to help listeners understand when I say that, you and I are in 50-50 and you're wanting to eventually buy me out or vice versa. And we're going along and we're trying to get this done and I die. Okay, well, there's a life insurance to come in and make that contract whole. But let's say that the higher statistical chance of being at my age, I don't die, I get in a horrible car wreck, or I get cancer, or I have something go, massive heart attack, or whatever it may be, and now I am not as productive, maybe not productive at all, as I was in that business relationship. And so I didn't mean to interrupt you, but how would those risk management policies play out in that disability scenario?
Well, let's just go back to the foundation of it, that if you and I are going to have a buy-sell agreement, I'm doing that so that I can have money in my pocket to buy out Michelle and your interest. So, Michelle doesn't want to be in business with me, and I don't want to be in business with her. All due respect, she does something completely different in a completely different industry and doesn't even have the licensing to do what you do. But she's still, by default, as your spouse, going to have the ownership of that at your demise. So I want to have a policy that's going to protect my interest to be able to protect her value of what your business value is. So that's the life insurance planning. The disability planning is I'm going to have a discussion with you and others to say, what is this business worth, and what do I need to have and on hand if Josh, you become significantly disabled, or I do? What do we need to have in a windfall capacity in order to have the money and to buy out again our respective our significant others, because we don't want to be in business with our significant others because they don't have any interest in doing this. So we need to make sure that that's in place, and I want to also make sure that we have an important discussion on valuation. CPAs, I love you guys out there, but your time is your hourly rate. And so your business owners, when they're actually looking to sell that business, they're going to ask you for a formal valuation. But if you're out there and you don't know what your plans are, but you're still curious as to what that valuation is, Josh, you and I have access to a couple of different companies that will offer a free valuation, no strings attached. You simply provide 3 years of financial data to those companies in a secure format, and they will print out a report of what your valuation is using several different valuation models, not just one or two, but 5. And you can kind of pick and choose which valuation is going to be more appropriate for you. So those of you driving down the road wondering what your business is worth, not just adding up your assets and subtracting your liabilities and figuring out what your gross revenue is and multiplying that out, actually put some numbers to paper and put it in a plan and get a report. And again, we can do that for you at no expense. It's not a formal valuation that you will use to succeed and transfer and exchange the business sale, but it's at least some planning that you can do without a huge expense.
Great first step. All right, very good.
Thanks to JP Morgan for that article.
Yeah, it's a good article.
Yeah, tell people to click on that link and read it.
Absolutely. All right, so this next site, Jay, it's one I've never heard of, but when I was trying to find articles about family-owned business succession plans, I was looking for some stuff that went awry. So this site is called Financial Poise. Have you ever heard of it? I never had.
I've never seen it.
Right. Well, the article is titled The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Family Business Transitions and Exit Planning. So we've discussed a lot about the good that can come out of a properly structured succession plan. So let's focus on the bad and the ugly. The article mentions the ego of the current business owner, which I would like to add what also is a common trait. It's not a criticism, but a common trait of successful business owners of being hyper-competitive, right? I've seen business owners become obsessed with the valuations that you mentioned earlier, especially the valuations given to their competitors that maybe they feel that they are a step above. And sometimes I see the overly competitive, overly ego business owners set unrealistic sales prices with their own businesses, right?
Absolutely, they do. And look, it's your baby.
You're right.
You deserve to think that it's worth 1,000 times more than what it actually is on paper. But you have to set your emotions aside and understand that you've got third-party people assisting you. Sometimes you're paying them good money to do that. And if they give you a report saying the business is valued at X, don't try and get X and inflate it. Just understand, go get different valuations. Go shop the marketplace and take your highest offer. But don't be so ego-driven that you think the business is worth way more than it actually is. So we have seen that. Just kind of let your emotions subside. You will be able to succeed and transfer and sell the business for the right number to the right people, and you will be able to generate a revenue stream that's going to help you in your retirement and your income years. Have confidence and have faith, and sometimes don't jump at the first offer either.
Right.
Let somebody
never take the first offer.
If somebody comes knocking on your door and says, "I want to buy your business for $10 million," well, they're coming in, they're not offering it in a competitive market. They're offering it at a low ball. I would venture to say that if you have anybody that's offering you a value today, go get a valuation done, because it's probably worth a lot more than what you think it is, especially if you have people knocking on the door.
Especially if you can get multiple bidders. Article also mentions they call the sins of the past. For example, and this will ring a bell, Jay, a business owner that runs the business by the seat of their pants, and a lot of times the numbers in their head don't actually match the reality of math on paper.
Yeah, so maybe they've found some tax loopholes when they get their taxable revenue, and they've been able to drive that tax liability down. Well, obviously, when you drive your tax liability down, you're also driving down the value of your business. So just be careful if you're using some tax tricks and some tax tactics out there. You just remember there's two words in the tax planning world. There's tax avoidance and there's tax evasion.
Right.
Tax avoidance is something that we sit down with our accounting professionals and try to avoid a higher liability of taxes. Tax evasion gets us in jail.
That's right. Very good. Well, and I think this also points to the fact what we mentioned in the opening of the article was the importance of having third party. Disinterested third party is kind of a misnomer, because the financial teams that you and I work with, when we bring in the estate planning attorney, any business planning attorneys, CPAs, we all get pretty vested in the success of our particular client, but we don't necessarily have a dog in the hunt.
That's right.
Outside of, hopefully the more successful they are, the more that they value our work there. So I think that having a disinterested third-party financial team alongside of you will help you avoid a lot of the bad and the ugly of a family business transaction, even when it seems just easy from father to son, mother to daughter, whatever it may be. You still want to have, I can tell you all from experience, both personally and professionally, you want to have somebody that you can bounce things off of that's going to give you a fair opinion, and you want to have something written that you can always go back to, that you all agree upon, that you can always point to whenever there's a dispute. Because even in the smoothest transactions, Jay, there's always something that pops up.
Absolutely. So having even sit down and over supper, especially if it's a family business, lunch or dinner, good friends, people that you've been with for years and years, ask them what their opinions are and take note of those opinions. The people that care for you also care for you and your business interests. So make sure that you're having great conversations with people and taking it all in.
Well, speaking of problems popping up, let's pivot to trust and Rupert Murdoch and family. Right. So now, again, to reiterate, Jay and I are not attorneys, but we often work hand in hand with all kinds of attorneys, particularly estate planning attorneys, as they develop various trusts for our clients, because sometimes there will, not say sometimes, a lot of times there will be some trust planning with this business succession planning that we're discussing. Now, there are different types of trusts, and really picking the correct one for your business transition is critical. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if you don't believe me, just ask Rupert Murdoch. So Rupert Murdoch, I think everybody recognizes that name, but he's the owner of well-known news outlets like the Wall Street Journal and Fox News. Most people would not think of Murdoch as a small business owner, but and by definition, he's really not. We're talking billions and billions of dollars of value. But the fact is, his businesses are closely held and they're controlled by what's called the Murdoch Family Trust. So with this, they have dealt with a lot of the same issues as your regular small business owner, just at a larger scale and obviously way more public exposure. In fact, Rupert Murdoch was recently denied by a court in his request to put his oldest son, I think his name's Lachlan. Does that sound right, Lachlan?
Yes, it sounds right.
Put his oldest son, Lachlan, in control of the trust. Probably more relevant to our listeners is the lessons that was learned from this particular judgment. Of course, he's going to appeal, but particularly the reluctance of Rupert Murdoch, who I believe is 93 years old. He's in his 90s. The reluctance of him as a representative, as a business owner, to simply let go, right? Because some people would say, well, I'm dead, who cares, right? Rupert views this as a multi-generational thing, not a judgment call on that. Maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong. I found a helpful article to help explain those broader lessons on an attorney's site, Jay. It's called Geiger Law. The article is titled, Understanding the Murdoch Family Battle Over Trust. Can an irrevocable trust be changed? So, Jay, do you think family-owned businesses can learn anything from the issues facing the Murdoch family?
Absolutely. Again, emotions get run high in any family business operation. And when you have identified through trust planning of who the successors are and who the leaders are going to be for an organization, it doesn't matter what the size, there are going to be some people who don't like that idea or like that plan of yours, especially if there's other children, kids, successor, family heirs involved. I do love trust planning. It's a very easy and clean way to make sure that assets are distributed fairly and equally because you have a trustee that's controlling that. It's also a good way to generate some protections, not only from estate planning but also from business planning and some legal protections there. But we have a resource at our website under the resources tab. It's called all the different. I think it's trust review, something along those lines, and it says.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that next.
Wealth strategies, understanding trust planning, and there's all types of different components. And what you need to understand is hearing the stories that we just talked about, the Murdoch family. Go back to the Steinbrenner family and of the Yankees transfer of the.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I mean, there's a lot of planning. You can do any story, Google any. Succession family business anywhere in the country, in the world really, but in the country, and you can learn some lessons from it. So I ask us for some case examples, ask you, Josh, for your own personal history of dealing with business owners and what their lessons were that they learned.
Well, one of the main takeaways I had of this as we transitioned to our last article, Jay, was I don't know what senator it was years ago that said, well, if you take $1 billion here and you take $1 billion there, now you're talking real money. They're all going to be fine. This is not necessarily a battle about money because they're all wealthy beyond measure. This is a battle about control. And that's one of the things for you small business owners that the zeros after the dollar sign sometimes is not as important as people being feeling like they're treated fairly and there's open and honest communication all the way around. Because obviously in the case of the Murdochs, we're seeing intimate family details play out in a very public setting, but there's definitely lessons about control to with that for even a small business owner here along the Gulf Coast. All right, Jay, last article, and you already kind of led into it. I wanted to kind of end on something that you're very familiar with, providencepartners.org. That's your website. It's got great resources for both business owners and advisors like me. I want to specifically talk about the resources tab, and you already mentioned it. There, you have a great PDF on there, the types of trusts, and you also got some business owner fact finder that I think would make business owners think about valuations and the such. So I'll give the floor to you.
Yeah. So if those that are listening are interested, there's a no username, no password needed. It's designed to go and grab stuff quickly at providencepartners.org. That's Providence spelled traditionally, partners spelled with an S.org. If you go to the resources tab and scroll down, you'll see agent and advisor education and fact finders. Well, those are fact finders and material that any agent or advisor like Josh or myself are actually going to put in front of you to gather relevant data, whether it's an estate planning case, a business succession, a business discussion plan, or succession, anything that we need to do with your business owner. So we have the guide or the checklist there. We also have irrevocable trust checklist. We have guide to the uses of trust that I just referenced earlier. And then there's some other components there that talking about insurance policy review. Those of you listening, if you have insurance policies, you've had them for many, many years, the resources tab, especially if they're business-owned policies, business disability policies, we have the resources available to perform very detailed reviews to make sure that they are adequately covering what they need to cover. So again, thank you for mentioning that, Josh. It's great to be able to put those resources out there for all to view and to see. Obviously, if anybody has any questions on any of those, they can let you know or let me know, and we're happy to answer them.
Very good. Well, listeners, I hope you learned something from our discussion around these recent financial headlines. All this matters to your money. I can promise you that. And speaking of money, if you'd like to start the conversation with us about your business succession planning, or maybe just about your individual retirement planning and investment management needs, then why don't you give us a call, 251-327-2124. And Jay, I know when those leads come, when people call from the radio show, it's a lot of fun. I answer it. I answered a phone call in the rainforest in Costa Rica while Michelle and I were on our vacation, and had a great 10-minute call with somebody, a regular listener to the show. It was really fun.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Now, also you can reach us on our website, Gulf Coast FA is in financialadvisor.com. Blue button, upper right-hand corner. We'll put a 15-minute introductory phone call on my calendar. All right, folks, coming up next, Josh's crystal ball and big mouth. Would have been some of my predictions. Have I been right? Was I ever wrong? How wrong? What do I think is going to affect investors in the near future, maybe the distant future? We talk about all these things. We poke a little fun at my big mouth, and we get to hear what Jay has to say about something that is really, really important here recently. So stay tuned. Whether it's building a business from scratch with your own two hands and wanting to maximize the financial impact of those sacrifices, or growing a great nest egg by being a dedicated and reliable worker for years, or choosing to live a life well within your means in order to accomplish a lifelong dream of retirement, the last thing you want is to go with the wrong financial advice after you've worked so hard to accumulate your assets. You've also probably spent most of your life putting others' needs ahead of your own, and now it's your turn. We can help. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is a locally owned, independent, fee-based financial planning, investment management, and tax planning practice. We have offices in Fairhope and Orange Beach. We serve all of Baldwin County and the Gulf Coast. We also have an easy-to-understand fee-for-service model with no sales quotas, no proprietary products. Our ultimate responsibility is to our clients' goals and dreams. You can reach us at 251-327-2124 or find us online at gulfcoastfa.com. That's GULF, like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast, FA as in financialadvisor.com. Welcome back. Your host, Josh Knoll here, alongside guest co-host Jay Stubbs of Providence Partners. So, Jay, I'm opinionated. I have strong opinions at times.
No.
I would say a radio show host that isn't would be very boring to listen to. And you and I are both paid in our professions to offer professional guidance and our professional opinions to our clients. Otherwise, I guess you just replace us with AI, right? So I like making predictions. And while I feel like I'm usually proved right because I'm kind of skeptical about things, there are times where I swing and miss. So let's. I'm gonna intentionally. Michelle usually one that makes me eat this crow, but I'm gonna get at it with Joshua's crystal ball and big mouth. So Jay, we already went down memory lane in the opening of the show with our talking about our first podcast. Our little baby, that little engine that did. Every dollar counts. I'd like to revisit another thing we talked about way back then. Do you remember COVID?
I think we all remember. We don't want to remember it, but I think that we all remember it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. We have conversations about that in my household last night about some of the stuff we did during COVID. Anyway, I digress. Get to your crystal ball.
Well, remember runaway inflation?
Yeah, we had that discussion.
Yes. So
that was about a year, maybe 6 months into maybe the COVID situation going on, 2020, 2021.
August 2021.
There it is.
Josh's big mouth. I sat there and tried to convince you that inflation, based on simple mathematical probabilities, because I'm so smart, such a math nerd, would not last much longer. I was right, except I was off by about 18 months. So it's totally swung and missed. Now, fortunately, I don't think I made any predictions around the longevity of COVID back then. All I can tell listeners is that for better or worse, many of us on the Gulf Coast back then got back to our regular daily routines probably a little quicker than a lot of the rest of the country. Is that fair, Jay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, I took a trip to see a cousin of mine in Michigan in September of 2021. And I'm telling you, Jay, it was like I was visiting from another country or even from another planet.
Well, you do live on the Gulf Coast, so that's almost another planet.
Well, and I'm from the Ozarks, so that's a double whammy. But
that's right.
Now, the reason I bring this up, Jay, is because history does not repeat itself, but it does tend to rhyme. So I want to see what your crystal ball, and I'll chime in too, has to say around how concerned Americans should be with this recent inflation data and what I consider some disturbing news around the bird flu.
So let's tackle inflation data. We're seeing the companies, the major ones that we know of, especially day to day. The value meals are popping up on billboards, right? So the $5 value meal at McDonald's, the $5 value meal at Checkers, the Chick-fil-A. I hadn't seen them make a value
inflation proof.
Yeah, they are. So all I'm saying is you're starting to see that. You're hearing in the news the cost of eggs. The availability of eggs. There's a reason. There's a rhyme and reason, folks, for everything that's going on, shortages and things like that. But inflation is a real thing, and we are paying more for our regular everyday goods than we were several years ago, and that's just as the nature of the beast. We were in a growing economy. We had good market performance, but we also had some things that made items more expensive, which drove the cost up. So it's something we definitely have to pay attention to. And these other items that we hear in the news, this bird flu, that's certainly something we need to be in tune with, because if we go into another panic, then certainly we could see inflation driven even higher.
Right. Well, and I'm going to say a couple of things, Jay, and I don't have an answer for the bird flu. I can tell you that my cousin Michelle sitting in Ozark, Missouri, is not sweating it because she has her own chickens. So maybe the lesson is get your own chicken coop out back, because she's got plenty of eggs.
Looking like European royalty when they have those chickens in the backyard.
She is very wealthy beyond her wildest dreams right now. But I can tell you, when it comes to inflation, one of the things that we have talked about, especially our regular listeners will pick up on this, is inflation sometimes is not only driven by the price of goods, but it's also driven by monetary supply. So one of the things that we can do, at least to accommodate some of the risks around inflation and increased monetary supply, is incorporate that into our investment management philosophy at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, particularly with the work that we do with our sub-advisor, Aptus Capital Advisors. So I can tell you, listeners, we're running short on time, but if you're interested, if inflation and whether you know it or not, monetary supply or printing of more money, i.e. deficits and debt spending, is a concern to you, if you want to have a conversation around that and at least have a plan in place to address those issues, I encourage you to give us a call. I'll walk you through how we incorporate those risks into our investment management philosophy. So the lesson of the day is start raising some chickens. And give us a call if these things are worrying you.
And start stockpiling your pennies and turn those back into the banks, because it looks like we're going to be getting rid of the penny.
Right. Very good. All right. Well, folks.
So everything's going to be down to the nickel, not down to the penny.
Well, we used to have mills. I don't know if you remember that. I mean, gas price is still that little thing at the end of it. That's 1/10 of a penny.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, when's the last
9/10.
When's the last time you saw a mill? All right. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed a little behind the scenes commentary on how Jay and I form our opinions. And that as fathers and husbands, we are human, and we do pay attention to broad world events. So we invite you one last time, if you'd like to have a free, no obligation conversation on the investment choices in your retirement accounts, and of course to you business owners that were tuning in, if you want to learn more about succession planning and the team that we're surrounded by both in-house and strategic partnerships at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, give us a call, 251-327-2124, or website gulfcoastfa.com. You can send a direct message on the site. You can click the blue button in the upper right-hand corner to get a 15-minute call on my calendar. You can do all the above. Just reach out to us. We love talking to you. Well, folks, that's it for us this week in Coastal Retirement. I want to give a huge thank you to my guest co-host, Jay Stubbs.
Absolutely. Good to be with you, Josh.
Always good to see you, buddy.
And welcome all the South Baldwin County listeners,
I know,
right?
yes. Yeah, about to say thank you to that. So obviously, thank you to your business, Providence Partners, for providing ongoing sponsorship of this program. Very, very much appreciated. Thank you to our longtime, very awesome radio station. That's FM Talk 106.5 out of Mobile. And of course, like Jay just mentioned, a huge welcome. We're going into our third week here. Those of you tuning in on WHEP 92.5 FM and its sister station 1310 AM out of Foley, so serves South Baldwin. Many thanks to the provider of our show music. That's local band Sloth Racer. Huge thank you to the show producer. That's my son, Peyton Null, freshman year, Auburn, doing great. And always a sincere appreciation for all of you that have been out there and tuning in and listening and joining us on this journey. We'd love to be a part of your journey as well. Till we talk again next Sunday or next Monday, till we talk again next week, Jay. Have a wonderful and productive week. This has been Coastal Retirement with Josh Null. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, LLC, known as GCFA, is a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Alabama and in such other jurisdictions where it is registered, filed the required notices, or is otherwise excluded or exempted from such registration and/or notice filing requirements. Registration does not indicate or imply that GCFA has attained a particular level of skill or ability, nor does it constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, or any other state securities regulator. The Coasting and Retirement radio program serves mainly to disseminate general information, including those pertaining to GCFA's advisory services, together with access to additional investment-related information, publications, materials, and links. The publication of this radio show should not be construed by any client and/or prospective client as GCFA's solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions in securities, nor should be interpreted as GCFA providing personalized investment advice or any type of professional advice for compensation wherever this program is broadcast. Any subsequent direct communication by GCFA with a prospective client will be conducted by a representative that is either registered or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from registration in the state where the prospective client resides. Certain information, news stories, headlines, data, charts, graphs, figures, or statistics presented on this radio program may have been obtained from third-party sources that are believed to be generally reliable, but which GCFA may not have independently verified. GCFA does not and cannot guarantee the timeliness, accuracy, or reliability of any such third-party information and undertakes no obligation to update or correct any information that may become obsolete, unreliable, or inaccurate. This radio program also contains the opinions, views, and perspectives expressed by Josh Knoll and any other GCFA representative, which are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, views, or perspectives of GCFA as a firm. Such personal views and opinions should not be construed as endorsements or professional advice from GCFA. GCFA makes no representation or warranty regarding the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any information on this radio program and disclaims any liability for any direct or indirect loss or damage incurred from using or relying on such information. GCFA and Providence Partners are not affiliated, nor are any of their respective representatives.